Okay, welcome everybody to our class. It's the third class of the 8 Dayas, and we're up to Dayah Two. Dayah, not Dayah, like Dayah, Dayah. Okay, Dayah Two, which we've called Bakshu Another. Yeah, be humble. So, just as a quick recap, can anyone just give me the definition of what a Dayah is?
An integrated piece of knowledge, something that becomes part of you.
Excellent, perfect. Yeah. So that's what we're trying to do with these ideas. Thank you, Tony. We are trying to become one with knowledge. That's the Jew. That's what we're meant to be as Jews. We're meant to become one with our knowledge. Yeah. Identified with the Torah. We'll talk a lot about that today, actually, B'ezrat Hashem. That's number one. Number two, can anybody on one leg describe the first day, which was called Live Life? Can anybody just put that into one sentence for us?
Taking responsibility for my behavior.
Yeah, great. I think that was the actual definition we gave, yeah. Yeah, so Daya one is essential because before Daya one, you don't exist. You're not playing the game. You're being played by the game. So the game doesn't begin until you've started to actually take responsibility for yourself. And it sounds like, well, of course I take responsibility for myself. It's not so passionate. It's not so passionate. People can be very, very wealthy and very powerful and very influential, etc., and have never lived a day in their life. That's just who they are. They never, they didn't live yet. So they're still being played by the game. So the first day, which is the precursor for everything, it's the foundation of everything, is um, take responsibility for your life because no one else is going to. You're in the driver's seat and act accordingly. Okay. Don't be a robotic, reactionary, unconscious graphic. Play the game. That's number one. Now we've decided to play the game. So Daya 2 is now essential because once you've decided to play the game, there is a really dangerous, um, almost unavoidable matzav situation that we have to be aware of and that we have to, once we've decided to play the game, now we have to make sure that we are aware of this, which is the second day, which is called be humble. Okay. So our definition of be humble is, this might be worth writing down, an openness to truth, change, and growth. This first page that I'm putting this whole nice book together, yeah, but these first nice looking pages, I can't tell you how much time has gone into the exact formulation of the words and stuff. So if you it's you're gaining by writing it down if you try and remember it. So definition of be humble, Bakshu another, is an openness to truth, change, and growth. And what we've been doing, which has been, I think, really, really helpful, is we're also giving the reverse definition. So the definition of be humble is an openness to truth, change, and growth. And by the way, just as a heads up, yeah, this year is going to be a pokey shear. This year is going to poke you in the deepest places, B'ezrat Hashem. So you should feel you should feel uncomfortable. This shear should make us all feel very uncomfortable. I hope that's the goal. And if a person isn't feeling uncomfortable in this shear, either you're a really big tzaddik, yeah, or the shear didn't penetrate properly and you need to listen to it again. But we should all end up feeling very uncomfortable by what we're going to talk about, okay? Just as a heads up. So the reverse definition, and here comes why you're going to feel uncomfortable, is an unconscious fear of change fueled by ego-driven defense mechanisms. This is the opposite of be humble. You can maybe call this arrogance, I don't know. An unconscious fear of change fueled by ego-driven defense mechanisms. Okay, and now you'll start really feeling the shoulders tense up with our three affirmations. Okay, affirmation one. I am open to truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might make me feel. Can you imagine if everybody integrated what we're saying right now into their psyches? I am open to truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might make me feel. That's affirmation 1. Affirmation 2. I value other people and their ideas, and I am prepared to change if need be. Affirmation 2, I'll say it again. I value other people and their ideas, and I am prepared to change if need be. And affirmation 3 is I choose growth over ego, value learning over the need to be right. So I think you can already see why this is the second Dayah. Because once you've decided to play the game, now we need to let down our defense. Because without relaxing of the defense mechanisms, there is no game to play. I might be prepared to play, but there's no game to play. Okay. We'll just run through this again very quickly. Okay, so the Dayah is called Be Humble. The definition is an openness to truth, change, and growth. The reverse definition is an unconscious fear of change fueled by ego-driven defense mechanisms. Affirmation 1, I'm open to truth, no matter how uncomfortable it might make me feel. Emphasis on the word feel, by the way. Affirmation 2, I value other people and their ideas, and I am prepared to change if need be. Affirmation 3, I choose growth over ego, value learning over the need to be right. Okay, so we've heard many times that humility is not thinking less about yourself, it's about thinking about yourself less. Did I say it right? Humility is not thinking less about yourself, it's thinking about yourself less. But we're going in a different direction. And this is really what we're about. Humility is about becoming less identified with your thoughts, particularly your ideas, and most dangerously, your ideologies. So Tully said it before in regards to a Dayah. Dayah means becoming intimately bound up with a piece of information. So the example of when you really know something, yeah, if like as a photographer, yeah, I can speak as a photographer. So if I'm in a restaurant and I hear someone next to me say Canon, yeah, I will turn around in the exact same way as if they would say Shmuel, literally. And you could fill in the blank by in your life, whatever you identified with, if it's a football team, or if it's a profession, or if it's some kind of it could be anything, your religion, which that's a big thing. You will turn around when you hear that word mentioned in almost an identical way, maybe an identical way of when they say your name, because you and that thing have become merged with each other. Now we're trying to become identified with very good things. This idea of humility is about recognizing when we are identified with things that aren't helpful and aren't positive. Okay, so we're talking about becoming less identified with our thoughts, which is particularly ideas, and very importantly, our ideologies. That we shouldn't be identified, or at least we should be aware of the identification and be able to step out of it if need be. This is what we're going to discuss. Okay, so we have to talk about this thing called the egoic wall. Can anybody, in one sentence, and not a really long rambling sentence, define what it is that your ego wants? You can even do it in like 2 words. What's the MO of your ego?
To live.
Yeah, I was going to say to be, but to live is fine. Same thing. That's what it wants to be. To live. It wants to be. Why? I don't want to get too philosophical. I don't want to get into like, Hasidus and Kabbalah because this year is just maybe super practical. Um, but it's the essence of our lower side is the need to be, just to be. Now that takes lots of different forms. If a person doesn't have, money to live or food to live, that need to be will express itself as the survival instinct. But what about, in LA where the survival part of your life has been more than taken care of, yeah? No one's, well, not no one, but most of you aren't struggling to survive. So what does that very essential need to be express it? How does it express itself when you don't have to go hunting and you don't have to, fight off the enemy? How does that express itself? Because it's always expressing itself. So the way that primarily expresses itself is what we're going to call the egoic wall. We're trying to build a city. We're trying to fortify ourselves. So once your existence is taken care of and your being, now the ego says we need to solidify that. We need to strengthen that. Yeah. And what it's doing is creating around us a wall, a conceptual wall all around us. What is that wall created from? So it's created from a lot of different things. I've got a little list here that I'll read to you. You don't need to write this down, but I'll please go, we'll get this out to you at some point. Acquisition, by purchasing and acquiring things, seeking validation, holding grudges, defensiveness, criticizing and judging others, possessiveness, comparing, contrasting, needing to control, identity clinging, being argumentative, taking things personally, competition. Yeah, all of these things that we do are all designed. We could speak about each one of these things, for a long time, but each of these things we're trying to do, each of these things are intended to help us solidify and strengthen this conceptual wall around us. And the ultimate tool that the ego uses to strengthen that wall around us is identification. Identifying with stuff, with anything, from your football team to your car, to your religion, to your athletic abilities, and as we know, even to your backache, to your abusive childhood, to your grandparents, to your grandparents' experience in the Shoah. Well, whatever we can identify with anything, and the purpose of these identifications is to to solidify this wall further, make the walls thicker, make the walls stronger, make the walls higher, whatever it is. But that's the goal of this, of our egos. What it's doing all of these different things, and the main thing it's trying to do, the main tool it has, could be even argued the only thing it's really doing, is identifying with things and solidifying this wall around us. Now, that's the definition of this. That's the definition of be humble. Now, remember, we broke it into 4 parts. We have definition, significance, challenges, and integration. So now the significance. So I'm going to give you 2 stories that will madgish, how to say that, will not emphasize, will bring out the point, not bring out, how to say it, whatever. So there's the story of Netflix and Blockbuster, okay? So in the early 90s, yeah, I mean, probably everyone here remembers Blockbuster, yeah? Illustrate, thank you. Perfect. So in the early 90s, Blockbusters were on every high street, sometimes, 2 or 3 of them on every high street, and they were killing it. They were renting out VHS videos, and they were making lots of money from late returns, and they were loving it. They were at the head of the game. And this little company called Netflix popped up, Yeah, a little company, and they were already getting involved. The internet was just beginning, and they were getting involved in like mail order DVDs. But then they started to entertain the idea of streaming, and they came to Blockbuster and they said, "Listen, we're going to go full steam ahead in this streaming thing. We're off. You could buy us out for $50 million, yeah." And let's jump into bed and we'll take this thing, yeah. Blockbusters were like, no, this is what we do, yeah, and we're making a lot of money and Zell. Yeah. So now 2024, Blockbusters is worth was it just over? Just over, I think, $500 billion. Yeah. By the way, Google is the most valuable. I just saw this week. Just this is completely side point. Google is the most valuable company. Sorry, Apple is the most valuable company at $3.6 trillion. And you know what the second most valuable company is? I could never ever have imagined it. Nvidia. You believe that? Nvidia and then Google. Anyway, that was crazy. Anyway, side point. So Netflix smashed it, and Blockbusters went bust, as their name implied. Yeah, why? Because of this egoic wall. Another story of this is Kodak. Yeah, again, Kodak actually invented the first digital camera in the 70s. They invented the first digital camera, but they were so invested in the film market that when they saw it coming on, they just stayed in their kind of stubborn, they kept to their stubborn wall. And by the time they realized that they had to actually go into the digital world, they had fallen behind, and their film department had gone, which was the main part of their business, went bankrupt as well. So the significance of be humble can't be underestimated, can't be understated. Yeah, there is so much there. I mean, that's just on a financial level, but on a growth level for us, it's unbelievable. So I'm going to give two more stories quickly, and then we'll come back to these two stories. So the first story is about Albert Einstein, and the second story is about Warren Buffett. So Albert Einstein, back in the 20s, discovered he there was a lot of information that basically intimated to him that the universe is expanding. But that was so contrary to his world outlook, which was there was not a beginning. You realize, by the way, that the discovery of the Big Bang, the beginning of the universe, was the biggest step that science has ever and could ever take towards the Bible. Science couldn't have taken a bigger step towards Genesis, towards Bereshit, than they did when they admitted that the Big Bang, that the universe had a beginning. Because they went from the universe was static and always was, to Bereshit bara Elohim. We have to now define what Elohim is, but Bereshit bara, that's for sure. So anyway, so Albert Einstein was so couldn't deal with that he came up with this thing called the cosmological constant. And at the end of his life, he said he called that the biggest blunder he ever made, because if he didn't come up with this equation that whatever fudged all the things that he found, and eventually he gave into Hubble about the discovery of the expanding universe, he said he would have been 20 years ahead in his thinking if he hadn't have come up with this cosmological constant idea that was that really held him back by many years. Okay, so keep that in mind. The story of Albert Einstein and the cosmological constant that stopped him from cashing in on 20 years of advanced advanced thinking, whatever. Okay, now there's the opposite story of Warren Buffett, who, when his company, Berkshire, what's it called? Berkshire Hathaway, brought out a company called McLean, which was like a trucking shipping company owned by Walmart, yeah, for $1.5 billion. Yeah. I don't know what it means to buy a $1.5 billion company, But apparently, there's what's called due diligence, which when you're dealing with such a large acquisition, you're talking you're talking a team of 50 plus lawyers and accountants and huge amounts of energy and resources and money are put into the due diligence. So Warren Buffett um, made the deal in what is it in an hour in an hour's meeting with Walmart with a handshake, and they bypassed the whole due diligence thing. And it says it was estimated they sent out around $30 million and a huge amount of time, which would have been lost profits as well, etc. Because Warren Buffett trusted Walmart. That's an amazing idea. That his trust in Walmart saved him $30 million and a lot of headache and a lot of time. So keep that. We're going to go back to those two stories. So we got the story of Einstein, yeah, with the cosmological constant, and we've got the story of Warren Buffett with his acquisition of McLean. What's it called? McLean shipping whatever it is from Walmart for $1.5 billion. Okay, so now this is really the lion's share of the share, which is a word called paradigm. Anybody know what a paradigm is? This is literally one of the most important words that I know.
Is it an outlook?
So yeah, an outlook is a nice way of saying it. So we're going to define, we've got a definition for a paradigm. The definition of a paradigm is a set of beliefs that shape our view of reality. And we are full of paradigms. Oh boy, we're full of paradigms. Okay, so it comes from the word paradigma, yeah, which means a pattern or an example. What's the kesher between a pattern and a paradigm? And the connection is that when you have a paradigm, what you're really doing is you're not looking at what is, you're projecting on what is. That's like a pattern. A pattern is, I mean, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a pretty straightforward pattern. So when I know 1, 2, 3, 4, and I look at the next number, well, that's going to be 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. It's predictable. So a paradigm is like a set of glasses that I wear that makes everything predictable. I'm putting my shtick on everything. That's a paradigm. Okay. So now we have, well, the reason why we have paradigms is as I mean, we've spoken about the DMN before, yeah, the default mode network. It's the way that this is really what creates the paradigms. It's basically a mental movie that we project that means instead of looking at X, we are looking at movies of X that we've experienced in the past. So like when you look at a leaf, when a baby like sees a cup or something, he's like wondering, like he's discovering, he's touching, he's feeling, he's immersed in the object, like somebody who's taken acid or any psychedelic, psilocybin or anything like that as well. That also not discontinues, like stops. How to say that? Whether it shuts down the DMN, and that's why you'll see a guy standing there with like a paper cup, like going, wow, wow. Yeah, whereas you don't go like that anymore. Why? Because when you see a cup, you're just projecting. I mean, a cup is pretty amazing. That's an amazing thing to look at, yeah? But why do you not pay any attention to that anymore? Is because you've seen so many cups that now when you look at a cup, you're not actually looking at a cup. What you're looking at is endless images of previous cups that you've seen. It's like watching a movie a dozen times or 1,000, a trillion times. Yeah, that's how we see the world. That's a defense mechanism. That saves us a lot of energy because imagine every time someone hands you a cup, you're like, wow, wow, So it actually saves a lot of time. It's a good thing as long as you know it exists. And the trick is to be able to jump out of it every now and again and look at a tree once in a while and go, wow. Or just look at anything. Look at, you know what really is what you're meant to be doing is look at another human being, any human being, disconnect the DMN, just go, wow, wow. If you ever learn Kabbalah, you'll learn that looking at a human being is the most accurate map of reality that you could ever. I mean, it is the map of reality. A human being from the top of his head to the soles of his feet and everything in between is the most detailed, accurate map of reality that exists in reality. That isn't like, you know? Anyway, so we have this idea of paradigms. We create paradigms, firstly, to make sense of the world, to make it easier. So firstly, to make things more simple and less energy, and also to make sense of the world. We are striving to make sense of things. Yeah, we're striving to fit things in boxes and have it all work together. That's why the scientists are striving to find the unified field theory. Yeah, because we want it all to make sense. The goal isn't to eliminate paradigms. The goal is to be able to relinquish our identification with them. That you can't you can't take your glasses, you can't not have glasses, yeah? You need to be wearing glasses, but you need to be able to take them off every now and again and to look at them and make sure that they're correct prescription, or make sure that they're not tinted, or make sure that they're not broken, etc. You understand? And a lot of us are wearing broken glasses, or a lot of us are wearing tinted glasses. A lot of us are wearing red glasses. You know, the whole world looks red, or the whole world looks blue. And we have to realize that the world isn't red and the world isn't blue. And that's what we're talking about now, is the idea of not being identified with your paradigm. So how are paradigms formed? How do you end up with these paradigms, these lenses at which you look at reality from? We'll give examples in a moment as well, Hashem. So just a quick list: family and society, education, media, your language, the actual language that English or Hebrew or Spanish or whatever language you speak. There are certain things that are available in certain languages that aren't in other languages. Okay, traumas, the geographical location, personality and temperament, your religion, personal strengths and weaknesses, personal successes, pardon me, and failures, economy, climate, all kinds of things add to your paradigms, to your lenses at which the way you look out the world. So now let's go back to the Buffett Einstein stories. What was Einstein's paradigm that caused him that tremendous loss? We can't be silent for too long because people turn off the YouTube. They'll think it's broken. Anyone can throw out an idea. What was Einstein's paradigm that caused him to invent this cosmological constant that set him back 20 years of discoveries? His paradigm. Huh?
Perhaps that the universe is constant, that doesn't
Yes.
change.
Yeah. That the universe did not have a beginning. That was his paradigm. He was working from this paradigm that the universe never began. So I've got all this information that says that it did begin. Well, I'm obviously wrong, yeah, because my glasses are correct. What I'm looking at is wrong. The glasses are correct. So he fudged it, like we all do, to make the glasses correct and what he was looking at wrong, set him back 20 years. What was Warren Buffett's paradigm that saved him $30 million and months of Agmas Nefesh?
That Walmart could be trusted.
Yeah, or just more generally, I trust people. People are trustworthy. You can trust people. You can trust people. A lot of people are working for the paradigm that you can't trust anyone. A lot of people, that's one of the most common paradigms there are. People can't be trusted. Warren Buffett was coming from a, not that everyone should be trusted, but he was coming from a place of it is possible to trust people. I don't have to second guess everyone. And these guys are good guys, and I'm somech on them. I'm going to be somech on them. That's how, I mean, those are just two stories that really demonstrate the power of paradigm. So I've done some research and I've come up with a few paradigms, negative paradigms for marriage, negative paradigms for parenting. Okay, again, the goal of this year is really to kind of poke. So if you're feeling poked, I'm doing my job. So negative paradigms in marriage. And I'm going to give you the positive paradigm that they can be replaced with. Yeah, three very common negative paradigms in marriage that can cause and will cause untold damage. Number one, my partner should know what I need without me saying it. That's a pair of glasses that a lot of women wear, especially, and men as well, but more common by women. That is a pair of glasses that women wear generally that says my partner should know what I need without me saying it. Yeah. The positive paradigm is I communicate openly with my partner about my needs. A negative one, marriage is 50-50. I'll give as much as I get. Again, this is something that might not even be articulated, probably isn't being articulated. It's a subconscious pattern, a subconscious lens that we're looking at the marriage from. And that can be replaced with marriage is about giving fully without keeping score. That's a very positive paradigm. Another one, which is very common, is it's my partner's job to make me happy. No, the correct paradigm is I'm responsible for my own happiness. And it's much easier to make someone who's happy more happy than somebody who's miserable happy. Okay. Parenting paradigms. My child should respect me because I'm the parent. I must earn my child's respect by being respectable. Ding. How can you respect someone who isn't respectable? You can't. It's just how Hashem created creation. It just doesn't work. So you want to be respected by your children? Not you. You need to be respected by your children, not for you, for them. They need to respect you. So you therefore need to be respectable. You need to speak in a dignified manner. You need to act in a dignified manner. You need to talk about dignified things. You need to be dignified. You need to be respectable. You can't be respected. You can't respect someone who isn't respectable. Just like you can't trust somebody who isn't trustworthy. It's like, why don't they love me? And you're like, because you're just so unlovable. Try and be a little more lovable, and maybe they'll start to love you. Or why don't they trust me? Because you always break your word. How can you trust someone who's not trustable? Who's not trustworthy? So okay, number two. Being a good parent means protecting my children from every disappointment. That's a very common paradigm, okay? No. Being a good parent means helping my child learn resilience through life's challenges. Another one, I need to fix all my child's problems. No, my role as a parent is to support my child's growth, not to solve everything for them. These are paradigms, and these are the greatest challenges to being humble. When you think you know, there's nothing to tell you. Like there's a very intelligent person that I was a big person that I know of, you probably also know of him, who I'm close with, who I had a very, what's the word? A very important and fundamental, I suppose, kasha or problem on what he was doing on his outlook. And I offered to talk to him about it. And his response to me was, I don't have the same question. The question that I was raising, that was the Pesach, which was the entry point into discussing the idea, he was like, I don't have the same question. And the conversation was finished immediately. A very clever man was able to completely sidestep the issue by just saying, well, I don't have that question, finished. The biggest barrier to truth is thinking that we have truth already. We have to relax our guard, and we have to be open to know that we probably don't know. And what we know right now is definitely up for discussion in basically everything. In basically everything. That's a very important, that doesn't mean that we can't have a certainty, but it means that when we're confronted with something against it, we have to be able to entertain what they're saying. So the integration of this idea is the biggest prevention to moving forward in our knowledge and in everything, yeah, in our growth as human beings, is this assertion that we're already there and that we know it and that we've got it and we've done it. So those are generally called paradigms. So really what we need to do for the integration of these ideas, we're going to talk about a bunch of like random ideas as well, but these two very important points is we need to, number one, discover what our paradigms are, number one. And number two, we need to reject the negative and destructive paradigms. The positive paradigms you can keep, they're fine, they're fine. As long as you know their paradigms, that is a good, like to look at the world, like my dad taught me this. He said to me years ago, he said, look, basically, he said, from my experience, basically everyone's a good guy. That's what he said. Not everybody's a good guy, but most people are decent. And I've lived my life like that. And I've dealt with thousands of, on a business level, I've dealt with thousands of people. I don't think I've ever made a contract with anyone. The idea of signing something, I'm not saying you shouldn't do that, but just that I've had all my business, we've sometimes written things down so we don't forget, don't forget things. But the idea, like what was I used to say? Well, I saw someone say it, is that if you can't trust them, yeah, then their signature's not worth anything anyway. And if you can trust them, then a handshake's fine. It's like, what's the point anyway? Yeah. So that's a good paradigm. That's a healthy paradigm. Basically, you can trust people. Basically, people are good. Basically, people are good. That's a lovely paradigm, as opposed to everyone's out to get you. That's not a nice paradigm. And that's going to bite you on the nose as well. That would have caused Warren Buffett to have lost $30 million. So how do we discover our paradigms, and how do you reject negative and destructive paradigms? So I'm going to tell you a story. I've said this story to you, I'm sure some of you anyway. I'll say it again. It's a very deep story, and it's a very powerful story. It's saying a very deep point that if you can fill in the blanks for your story, it will be incredibly uncomfortable. But the graphics that I'll give it to you will be very, very comfortable indeed. Okay, so I'm by my shul. This was years ago. I was standing out beside my shul, and a Siddish kid had a Chad Parmi cup, a plastic disposable cup, and he just threw it on the floor. Yeah, it was like in the direction of the trash can, but anyway, the lid was down on the trash can anyway. What do you call it in America? Not the lid. What do you call it? The top, whatever. Yeah. So anyway, he threw it on the floor, and I exploded. And I had all the thing. I'm like, that's like Bechinas Paroi, and you think you own the world. That's Gaiva. That's Mitzrayim. That's the opposite of God. You're worse than a Yitush. And I had all the, I was saying all the holy things. Just really angry. Yeah. And a guy that I knew, a really good guy, comes next to me. And he's like, Shmuel, why? Yeah, relax. Why are you so upset? And I was like, what are you talking about? Why am I so upset? He's throwing trash on the floor. He thinks he owns the world. And fine. I walk away from the situation, huffing and puffing and all like angry. And my friend's words were in my head, like, it's not so bad. Why are you so angry? I'm like, what are you talking about? It's not so bad. It's throwing trash. It's the worst thing. And I'm walking back to my office, and I'm like in this thing in my head with these words. It's not so bad. Why are you so angry? And I'm like, no, it is. It's throwing trash. I walked into my office when I used to have a big couch in my office. I sit on the couch. I remember just looking at a blank wall, and I stopped and I said, okay, I'm going to answer the question. I'm not just gonna push it away. Like the question was said to me, why is this so bad? And I wasn't giving an answer. I was just saying it's just terrible. It's throwing trash. It's I'm like, no. Let's answer the question. And it was terrifying. It was terrifying. And I realized I went deep inside and I realized and I started having flashbacks of my dad. I mean, I grew up in England, yeah, in London, where throwing trash is literally like, yeah, no one throws trash. No, if you saw someone throw trash, you would be traumatized. You just don't see that, yeah. And I remember my dad, yeah, my dad would make a joke. I remember he'd make a joke a couple of times. They should bring back capital punishment for litter bugs, you know, for people who throw trash. It is a joke, but it wasn't really a joke, yeah. And I realized that this insane intolerance for throwing trash. Don't get me wrong, I don't condone throwing trash, yeah, but it's not as bad as breaking Shabbos. It's not even in the same world as breaking Shabbos. Do you see me getting as infuriated over Chillul Shabbos as I do about people throwing trash? So I went inside and I realized that this isn't my own choosing. I didn't choose to think trash is the worst thing in the world. Again, I'm not condoning trash, and I teach my kids not to throw litter, and I don't, and I'm very stark on me if I just didn't throw litter, but it's not the end of the world. And I realized it was a pillar of my reality. It sounds really funny. Like I said, it's a very powerful example. Now you can replace trash with whatever it is your childhood experiences and the things that your parents told you or whatever kind of pillars are upholding your reality. Yeah. And I went inside and it was probably about 15 or 20 minutes of, I can't think of another word other than just utter courage. And I broke down that pillar. I smashed it down. I smashed it down. I went outside, I took my trash can, I threw it all over the street. I'm just joking. I broke that pillar down. It took a huge amount of courage. It sounds so funny, yeah, but it's really a real thing. It's lovely that Shem gave me this nice power of example to talk about. But we have to do that. We have to go inside and we have to ask ourselves these questions. What are these paradigms in our life? What are these pillars in our life? And then we have to look at them and we have to decide if they are valid or if they're invalid. And if they're invalid, we have to destroy them. We have to dismantle them. That's an extremely integral part of being human, is dismantling destructive paradigms that were handed to you by your parents, your society, your school, your Rebbe, your teacher, or whoever it was, mainstream media. So I wrote it down just very quickly. Again, I have to write this down. I'll get into it at some point. How do we discover our paradigms? Number one, we must clearly understand what a paradigm is, which I think we do now. Yeah, that's number one. A lot of people don't even know this. A lot of people don't even understand that they're looking at the world through glasses. If you don't know you're looking at the world through glasses, then there's no chance. Number two, we must be open to discovering our paradigms. And even more, we must truly desire it. We must want to know our paradigms, not just know what they are and not just open. We must be striving to find our paradigms. Don't take anything personally and don't get defensive. Don't get defensive. I remember when years ago, I sent out a client feedback form for my business to hundreds of clients, not quite, maybe like 1,000 people, yeah. And I remember, so I was getting huge amounts of feedback every day. Every day I'd be getting, 10 to 20 for a couple of weeks, 10, 20, 30 feedbacks. And all until then, I just got very positive feedback because it was very, like email or face-to-face kind of thing, yeah. But when you send out an anonymous Google form, all of a sudden, everyone feels much more comfortable telling you the truth. And all of a sudden, I realized I'm coming back. It was lunchtime because a lot of people in America, so it was like in the afternoon when I'd come back and I'd look at the responses. and it would be negative, it'd be overall it's quite nice, but you missed this shot of so and so, or you weren't like here at this point, you didn't do this, and lots of negativity, yeah. And I remember, because this is a very privileged position, is as I would sit down in front of the Google spreadsheet to see the Google form thing, my shoulders would tense up, yeah, and my whole physiology would change to this defensive kind of ready to like fight back kind of physiology, yeah. That's what happens whenever something negative starts being said to us. You go into your physiology changes to a point where it becomes very, very difficult to be able to actually entertain these ideas in a non-defensive way where you will be actually able to grow from these ideas. So that's very important, is don't take things personally and check your physiology. Check your physiology to make sure that you're not getting like that. Okay, that's number one. And then number two, how do you dismantle them? Is number one, you have to be courageous. There is no, I'm telling you, it's passionate scary. It's really, really scary. Number one. Number two is you have to know that you will not die. If you dismantle this paradigm, it will not kill you. In fact, it will give you life. It will give you untold amounts of life. It will not kill you. And number two, which is really helpful, is have a positive paradigm to replace it with. So what I did with the trash was Shabbos. That it just kind of popped into my mind. I was like, you don't get like offended by people not keeping Shabbos, yeah. And in my mind, I made it that no, that should be much more chomer, than that should be much more serious than seeing someone throw trash. So if you can replace a faulty paradigm with, like we said, like it's my spouse's, what do we say? It's my spouse's job to make me happy. Yeah, no, I'm responsible for my own happiness. That's breaking a paradigm and replacing it with a new one. That's a very practical idea. Okay, so we'll finish off the class by a list of 15 or so random pieces of advice that will help us integrate this idea of becoming humble, which basically means that we are receptive to growth. Without humility, you are not receptive to growth, and the becoming proactive was already a bit of a it's a bit of a farce. You could probably, if you really wanted to, you could turn the first and second Dayah into one Dayah, to be honest. They're kind of like two flip sides of the same coin in a sense, but we decided not to do that. Okay, so these are random pieces of advice, and they are kind of in order. Okay, the first most powerful tool that we have to dismantle this egoic wall that prevents us from learning new things and growing is by being silent when faced with humiliation or shame. If ever something happens to us that is humiliating and we are able to just remain silent, including, and maybe even more importantly, an inner silence, that egoic wall gets smashed down in a very real way. All the tzaddikim talk about this. I'm not going to get into it too much. We could give a shir on this for sure by itself. We actually probably have given a shir on this by itself. But the idea of staying silent in front of your bizyoinus when someone's mevaza you, that is an incredibly powerful way of weakening this egoic wall, which is what we're trying to do, by the way. Okay. Read Reclaiming Sanity at least 4 times. Okay. That book is geared at softening and breaking this egoic wall. Okay. Number 3, very important. Assume you have something to learn from everyone. Everyone. And you know what the funny thing is? You do have something to learn from everyone. Now you have to know that there are, there's for sure relationships. There are people who are more learned and more experienced and older, etc., more mature, who their job is to be mashpia. And there's younger people, immature people, less experienced, less intelligent, whatever, less knowledgeable, who their role is to be more mushba, more influenced. Okay, for sure. But that to the side. No matter who you are, you're the biggest godel in the world, and that was a lot of people said that about the Lubavitcher Rebbe. When someone would come to his office, he would in many ways he would speak to them like especially like professional people or anybody. He would talk in like a childlike way, like with they would call it like a childlike um, desire for knowledge, or I can't think of the way they said it very respectfully. But this just teach me, talk tell me, teach me. I want to learn. I want to know. So, and you can even learn that from children. So assume you have something to learn from everyone. If you don't know, be quick to say, I don't know. Fall in love with those three words. I don't know. I'm sorry, I just don't know. So fall in love with those three words. Very, very healthy. Very healthy indeed. Okay. This is a big one, yeah. Train yourself to refrain from forming opinions on matters that don't require them. If you don't need an opinion on it, which basically is about 95% of the things that we have opinions on, if you don't need to have an opinion on it, try not to have an opinion on it. How about that? Okay, be comfortable not defining yourself. Don't say, I'm a this kind of person, I'm a that kind of person. And as a side point, by the way, this is my own personal advice. Oh, I suppose all of this is my personal advice. Yeah, never, ever, ever define a relationship that you have with anyone. That is, and even if it might be true, never ever say it. And if it pops into your mind, put it out your mind. The more you define a relationship, the more you imprison the relationship. And relationships are dynamic, moving, growth-filled experiences. So never define a relationship. But that's not about this. But don't define yourself and don't define others. Okay? Actively seek feedback. Another great piece of advice there. Okay? No belief can be held sacred. Be prepared to question everything. Now, the religious ones amongst us might start feeling a little bit zealous at that. But you have to, and I just learned today in the chinuch that the mitzvah of believing in Hashem, according to the chinuch, is actually the mitzvah of going deeper in knowing God, which means asking questions and doing your research, researching questions which actually move you deeper. And that means you have to entertain questions like, I'm looking forward to the day my kids turn around to me and say, "Well, how do I know that God exists?" I've had different. I haven't actually had that question for my children, but I'm very much looking forward to that question. The other day, my 3-year-old asked, "Why did God make terrorists?" That's a good one. And today he asked the question, "Why do people get married?" Another great question. I haven't got an answer to that second question, by the way. But that's just a joke. Okay, we're nearly finished. This one's a good one. Be a learn-it-all, not a know-it-all. Okay, another important idea. When sharing an idea, begin with the way I understand it, or something similar to that leaves you open. Don't say this is how it is. Say what I learned it. This is how I understood it. Yeah. Now you're open to hearing the other side, and then maybe we'll grow. Okay. Never disregard criticism, no matter how unjust it may be. That's a really good one as well. That even when somebody criticizes you for something that they are clearly they're looking at themselves. They're criticizing you like a big fat guy calling you overweight. Yeah, what do you do? Yeah. So the natural reaction would be, you're fat. No, forget about him and use that to help you move forward. Okay, ask more questions than you give answers. Strive to understand, not to disagree. That's a very important one. A lot of times people give an idea, and then what people try to do is they try to not understand the idea. One day there's a beautiful Benish High on Bava Metzia, I think, where Rabbi Zera fasted 100 days, 100 Tainesim, when he went to forget Torah's Bavel. You remember the story? And said Rabbi Zera did 100 fasts to forget Talmud Bavli when he went into Eretz Yisrael. And the Ben Yoyada, the Ben Ish Chai, said that he wasn't trying to forget the actual information, he was trying to forget the Derech HaLimud, because he said that they would sit with each other in Bavel and they would try to not understand each other. Where he said what you should be trying to do is you should be trying to understand the other person, trying to give kiyum to what they're saying. That's what the Ben Ish Chai. One day we'll look at that inside. It's very special, very beautiful. Okay, develop a beginner's mindset like Rebbe Akiva. That was the inyan of going back to Cheder. And reflect on mistakes instead of defending errors. So that is the second day of Be Humble, which we'll just finish off very quickly with the definition again: an openness to truth, change, and growth. Reverse definition: an unconscious fear of change fueled by ego-driven defense mechanisms. Okay, affirmation 1: I'm open to truth and how comfortable it might make me feel. I value other people and their ideas, and I am prepared to change if need be. I choose growth over ego, valuing learning over the need to be right. Is what to say. Any questions?
Just very quickly, what did you mean by defining a relationship? What is to define a relationship?
To say, well, my relationship with my child is like this. How would you fill that in? Like you could say, like, my relationship with my father is, and then you could fill in the blank, whatever you want to put in the is after is. My relationship with my father is ... That shouldn't be in your vocabulary. That's not helpful in any way.
What about saying I have a good relationship with my father?
Oh, having a good relationship, that's not a definition of a relationship. To say my relationship with my father is a totalitarian, submissive relationship. That might be the case, but don't say it and don't think it, because now it can't, you're giving it, you're defining it now, and it's going to be a self-fulfilling prophecy. At least when you don't define it, and then you can experience the relationship, because relationships are like when you're sitting there with your dad and he's in a good mood, yeah, if he's been totalitarian for whatever, but now he's in a good mood and things are flowing, yeah, now enjoy that, because now the relationship it's different, flow, go with it, flow with it. Sometimes relationships are like when how long have you been married, Tony?
14 years.
14 years. So you have ups and downs. You have months when it's like bliss. You have months when it's Gehenna. You go, and if you hold on to the Gehenna months and you define it like that, then you won't be able to go back up on the roller coaster. That's what I mean. Relationships are fluid and dynamic. So by defining them, you're denying the essence of the relationship, because relationships are meant to rise and fall and go this way and go that way, and that's how relationships are. So when we define them, we don't allow that to take place, and it's not fair on the relationship. It's not fair on me. It's not fair on the person I'm having a relationship with.
Would you say it's the same thing with our with regard to the relationship with ourselves?
Yeah, maybe even more so. That's the side of Avraham, who said, Anochi offer v'efer. An offer, which means dirt, and efer means ash, means I'm incinerating what I am. I'm definitionless. Anyone remembers the word that we use for that? What's the technical Hasidic term for I don't have any definition? Shvir Salev. And as the Tzaddikim said, there's nothing as shalem as a broken heart. Shir Salev that's not a negative. That's what we call the stage of the seed. like an apple seed has got like a brown little cleaper and a white kind of bit in the middle. You know what I'm talking about? You can peel it with your nails. It's
Hmm.
got white in the middle. Yeah. So when they say that the seed rots and then it sprouts. Yeah. So it doesn't actually rot at all. What happens is the brown part of the seed rots and then the white part sprouts. So the seed without that brown shell, that's called Shvir Salev. That's called not having a definition of yourself. That's called being definitionless. And that means you can be whatever you want to be, or whatever you more accurately, whatever you need to be. Because if you're, well, I'm just this kind of person, well, then you can't do that. And right now you need to do that. So what are you gonna do? So that was the side of Anochi Afa Ve'efer. Abraham kept incinerating what he had become because you become a prisoner to your Madrega. He was going up and up and up and up and up, but you could become a prisoner to the Madrega. So he incinerated that, and he was comfortable without having a definition of himself. That's very healthy.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Should be Zoicha B'ezrat Hashem.
Amen.
My pleasure.